I was only 10 steps from gate B12 when I heard the sound no daughter ever forgets. My mother screaming. I sprinted forward just in time to see a mountain of a man drive his boot into her ribs, knocking her to the airport floor like she was nothing. Her cane snapped. Her purse spilled. And she lay there trembling, choking on her own cry for help while dozens of bystanders just watched. My vision tunneled. My pulse went dead quiet. Ranger, my K9 partner, felt the shift before I did. He roared so violently the entire terminal froze. Because in that instant, I wasn't a traveler. I wasn't off duty. I wasn't a daughter. I was a Navy SEAL. And the man who kicked my mother was already a dead man walking. Before we dive in, tell me where you're watching from. And if this moment hits you the way it hit me, like, subscribe, and drop your location in the comments now. This one is personal. I had barely stepped off the jet bridge when the familiar scent of home hit me. Coffee, fuel, and the faint perfume of rushed travelers brushing past each other. After 7 months overseas, it smelled like peace. It smelled like everything I'd been fighting to protect. But nothing grounded me more than the thought of the one person waiting at gate B12. My mother, Margaret Hale. The softest part of my otherwise brutal world. I hadn't told her I was coming home early. I wanted to surprise her, watch her eyes light up the way they used to when I was a little girl running back from school with scraped knees and tangled hair. She was the only person who ever made me feel human after the things I've done. I shifted my duffel higher on my shoulder. Ranger, my K9 partner, paced tight on his leash, ears pricked, muscles coiled. He wasn't acting aggressive, just calculating. Reading the air. Reading the vibrations of people's steps. Reading something I hadn't caught yet. Easy, boy, I murmured. But he didn't ease. He never got it wrong. Not once. Not in any war zone. Not in any kill house. And the way his fur stood up along his spine sent a cold warning along mine. All right, I whispered, feeling that familiar electricity pull through me. We'll keep our eyes open. Families laughed. Wheels rolled across tile floors. A child bounced a rubber ball that echoed like distant mortar fire. I flinched, barely enough for anyone to notice, but Ranger noticed. His head whipped toward me, checking my pulse, my state, my readiness. I steadied myself. I wasn't here to fight. I wasn't here to scan for threats. I wasn't here to bleed or make someone else bleed. I was here to hug my mother. She texted me an hour ago, at the gate, sweetheart. Wearing my favorite green dress so you can spot me. I smiled at the thought of her in that dress, bright emerald with embroidered sleeves. She wore it the night my father proposed to her. I quickened my pace through the terminal. Every step brought me closer to her. Every step felt lighter. Every step. Ranger stopped dead. His leash snapped taut. His teeth bared silently, not in aggression, but in warning. The kind of warning I learned to obey without question. I crouched slightly, following his stare. Gate B12. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Come on, I whispered, and we moved, swift and quiet, slicing through the crowd like a blade. If you believe no one should ever harm the elderly, hit the like button now. Ranger's low rumble vibrated through the leash before I even saw him. That sound, quiet, controlled, lethal, meant one thing. Predator detected. I lifted my eyes toward gate B12. And there he was. A thick-necked man stood inches from a young airport attendant, his face red and twisted with rage. He wasn't just irritated. He was unhinged. His voice thundered over the noise of the terminal. Dear Job, I'm not waiting for anyone. The attendant shrank back like she'd been hit already. I slowed, analyzing him with the instinct I'd spent years perfecting. Weight forward, fists half-clenched, shoulders rolled like he's about to charge. The stance of a man who solves problems with violence because the world has never forced him to pay for it. Ranger leaned harder into me, muscles trembling. Not fear. Restraint. He wanted to engage. He wanted permission. My pulse sharpened, instincts firing rapid assessments, angles, exits, distance to the threat, distance to my mother. My mother. She should have been sitting right there, in one of those seats, in her green dress. But she wasn't. The bully's voice dropped to a guttural snarl as he jabbed a finger into the attendant's face. You think I care who's in the way? Move them. Do you hear me? Move them. Ranger's growl deepened. People around us stiffened. They heard it. They felt it. But I forced myself forward, keeping us controlled, unnoticed, unprovoked, because I hadn't seen my mother yet, and panic is how people die. I brushed my thumb over the release tab of Ranger's harness. Not pulling it. Just knowing it was there. Knowing one flick meant he'd bring a grown man to the ground in under 3 seconds. My instincts whispered, something worse is coming. Don't escalate yet. Keep walking. So I did. One step. Then another. Eyes sharp. Body loose. Breathing steady. And then I saw movement beside the seats. A flash of emerald green. My stomach dropped. Ranger's growl snapped into a violent bark. Because he saw her before I did. My mother. And the bully's shadow was already falling over her. I opened my mouth to call out to her. But I never got the chance. The bully turned toward the flash of green. And, before I could cover the distance, before Ranger could break free, before my mother could even stand, he kicked her. His boot slammed into her ribs with a force that folded her sideways. The sound wasn't loud, but it was final. A soft, strangled gasp ripped from her chest as her cane skittered across the floor like a broken bone. Her body hit the tile. Her purse spilled. Her hands clawed for air. And something inside me, something I didn't even know still existed, snapped. The terminal disappeared. Every voice, every footstep, every announcement dissolved. All that remained was my heartbeat, Ranger's snarl, and the man who had just kicked my mother. My vision tunneled. Training overrode emotions so fast it felt like a switch had been thrown. Seal mode, combat mode, predator mode. My stride changed. I didn't decide to move, my body moved on instinct. Shoulders loose. Hands open. Balance low. Spirit locked onto the target. Ranger exploded forward, straining the leash so hard my arm nearly wrenched from the socket. His teeth were fully bared, saliva snapping from jaws trained to incapacitate a grown man in under 2 seconds. But I wasn't stopping him. Not this time. The bully stood over my mother like he might strike again. Wrong decision. Wrong woman. Wrong daughter. I swear the ground shook when I roared. Hey! He turned. And for the first time, the rage on his face flickered. Because he saw me. And he saw the animal beside me ready to tear him to pieces. But he didn't understand yet. I wasn't angry. I was beyond angry. I was quiet. And quiet is where seals become lethal. If your blood boils hearing this, comment, "Protect our mothers" in the chat. Step away from her. Now. My voice cracked across the terminal like a rifle shot. It wasn't loud, it didn't need to be. It carried authority. Command. Violence barely leashed. Everything stopped. The stroller wheels. The escalator chatter. Even the coughing old man at the charging station froze mid-breath. The bully turned toward me slowly, shoulders rolled back, arrogance dripping off him like oil on water. Then he saw Ranger. Ranger was no longer a dog, he was a loaded weapon with teeth. His entire frame shook with controlled fury, claws scraping the tile as he pulled into the harness hard enough to drag me forward an inch. The bully blinked, then laughed. Actually laughed. You again, he sneered. What are you gonna do? Sick your little mutt on me. Little. Mutt. I felt Ranger surge violently, a full-force lunge intended for bone, tendon, and throat. His snarl hit the air like a chainsaw behind a war drum. I caught the harness with both hands and locked my stance, boots planted. Not because I wanted to stop Ranger. Because letting him go would have been too merciful. This man deserved to understand exactly who he had just crossed. Inside me, the shift completed. The familiar slide from human emotion into something colder. Sharper. Purpose-built. My pulse slowed. My breathing deepened. My vision narrowed to him and him alone. My mother's soft cry behind me faded as training consumed the noise of the world. Target acquired. Threat isolated. Violence authorized, pending my judgment. The bully kept laughing, unaware that the temperature in my chest had dropped to lethal. Unaware that my hands had already mapped the distance between us, the angle of his jaw, the timing of his next breath. Unaware that I could dismantle him before he even raised his hands. He puffed up, stepping closer. "Lady, back off." I barely touched her. Barely touched her. Ranger's growl deepened to a terrifying rumble, the kind he only made before a takedown. I leaned in, my voice low, calm, and colder than steel. "Take one more step. Give me the reason you've been begging for." His smirk faltered. Because now he saw it, the thing overseas insurgents recognized right before they dropped their weapons. I wasn't bluffing. I wasn't scared. I wasn't angry. I was ready. And a ready seal is something no civilian bully survives. I was one breath away from putting the bully on the floor permanently when a hand clamped down on my arm. Not a civilian's hand. Not a panicked bystander. A security supervisor, slick suit, polished shoes, badge shining like a cheap shield for a rotten soul. "Ma'am," he hissed through clenched teeth, "you're making a scene." I turned slowly, eyes hard, Ranger positioning himself instantly between me and the bully, teeth exposed, hackles raised like a ridge of black knives. The supervisor didn't flinch. He didn't look at my mother lying on the ground. He didn't acknowledge the crowd. His eyes flicked only to the bully behind me, the kind of look exchanged between men who share dirty secrets. And the bully? He smirked again. Because he knew he had backup. The wrong kind. I felt my jaw clench. Not in fear. Not in frustration. In recognition. This wasn't random. This airport protected the wrong people. This man was part of a pattern. A cover-up. One I'd seen in foreign corruption rings, a system rotten from the inside. "Step away from the suspect," the supervisor ordered, tightening his grip on my arm. Suspect. He meant me. My voice dropped into the tone I've used in interrogation rooms and hostile checkpoints. "Let go of my arm before you lose the hand attached to it." For a split second, the supervisor's mask cracked. Just a hairline fracture of fear. Because he finally saw the truth behind my eyes. He didn't release me. Mistake. Ranger took one step forward, a deep, primal growl rolling out of him, a sound so low the floor vibrated. The kind of growl he used on insurgents who hid blades behind smiles. The supervisor actually took a half step back. Instinct, not choice. Too late. He'd already confirmed what my gut suspected. He wasn't here to protect the innocent. He was here to protect the bully. And whatever illegal arrangement tied them together. My mother lay curled behind me, clutching her ribs with trembling fingers. And these men, this bully and this suited coward, thought they could bury the assault like it was an inconvenience. Not today. Not with me here. I leaned in, voice low, weaponized. "You want to see a real scene? Try touching my mother. Try touching my dog. Try touching me again." The supervisor swallowed. The bully's smirk faded. The crowd pressed closer, phones rising like judgment. And for the first time since I'd stepped into the terminal, the two men who thought they ruled this airport realized they had just picked a fight with the wrong daughter. If you stand with justice, subscribe now. These moments matter. The supervisor's grip finally loosened when Ranger stepped between us, but I didn't waste a second. My hand dropped to my vest pocket, thumb sliding over a familiar ridge. My body chem lit green. My external recorder activated, audio, video, timestamp, geolocation. If these men thought they could bury what they'd done to my mother, they were about to learn how wrong they were. I straightened. Dead calm. Voice steady enough to chill bone. Badge numbers. Now. The supervisor blinked. The bully stiffened. Neither spoke. Badge numbers, I repeated, my tone dropping an octave, before I assume you're impersonating security and detain you myself. They refused again, eyes darting, scanning for someone, something, permission to lie. That alone confirmed everything I needed. My field brain kicked on fully, tactical mode, investigative mode, recon mode, whatever you want to call the part of me the military built and the battlefield perfected. I mapped out the entire terminal in under 3 seconds. 3 exits behind me, 2 clogged with passengers, 1 clear, 5 overhead cameras, 2 turned conveniently away from gate B12, 1 blinking red like its feed was interrupted, 100+ witnesses, a cluster recording, another cluster pretending not to watch, a man in a corner filming discreetly, trying to hide it. Security response team nowhere in sight, an intentional delay. Supervisor posture, too confident, too familiar with the bully, too eager to silence me. Bully stance. Rocking on heels, ready to strike again now that his protection arrived. A pattern. A system. A cover-up. I'd seen the same thing in war zones, corrupt officers shielding local tyrants, hiding brutality behind authority and badges that no longer meant anything. But the biggest tell? Ranger. He circled me once, slow and deliberate, nose twitching. When he stopped, he pressed his shoulder to my leg and locked eyes with the supervisor, lips peeling back just enough to show the first edge of fong. My dog does not growl at uniforms unless the soul inside them is rotten. My rage simmered low, controlled, channeled into the precise kind of clarity that made me lethal in rooms far darker than this terminal. I leaned in just enough for the supervisor to feel my breath on his ear. "You're tampering with a federal assault investigation," I murmured, calm as death. "And you have 5 seconds to decide if you want to spend tonight at home, or in a cell regretting every choice that brought you to my mother's feet." He swallowed hard. The bully's smirk dropped entirely. The terminal shifted. The energy, the air, the power. They weren't in control anymore. I was. And I wasn't done. Not even close. The moment I stepped forward, something shifted behind me. A soft, rising rustle like leaves stirring before a storm. I didn't need to look. I knew exactly what it was. Phones. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. Lifting. Aiming. Recording. Good. If these men wanted to use this airport's shadows to protect a bully, I'd drag every one of them into the brightest spotlight imaginable. I raised my voice, not yelling, not shaking, just precisely loud enough for every microphone in the terminal to catch every syllable. "This man," I said, pointing straight at the bully, "kicked my mother to the ground. She is a senior citizen. This is a felony assault." The supervisor stiffened. The cowardly smirk on the bully's face cracked down the middle. I didn't stop. "And this supervisor," I continued, turning just enough to capture him in every camera angle, IS obstructing a federal witness and refusing to identify himself. Both of them are interfering with a medical emergency. Several passengers gasped. A man whispered, "Oh damn." Someone else muttered, "They're cooked." Good. I moved fast. Before the bully could back away. Before he could lie. Before he could hide behind the suited parasite he called protection. I seized his wrist, rotated inward, and locked his arm behind his back in a clean, controlled motion taught only to those who know how to break bones without trying. He yelped. The sound wasn't pain, it was surprise. Surprise that I was stronger. Surprise that I wasn't scared. Surprise that he was no longer the predator. I pushed him forward gently, just enough to show every camera how helpless he suddenly was. "This is how you restrain a violent subject," I announced clearly. "Notice how no one is being hurt. Notice how I'm protecting the public." The crowd reacted instantly. She handled him better than security. Why didn't they do that? She's trained. That guy assaulted an old woman. Lock him up. The supervisor's face drained of color. He finally realized what I wanted him to realize. He wasn't fighting me. He was fighting the internet. And that battle was already lost. Behind me, I heard the first telltale sound. The whoosh of uploads. The buzz of notifications. The murmurs spreading like wildfire. It's already up. It's going viral. Someone tagged the authorities. In under a minute, the first clip hit social media. In under 2, it hit 40,000 views. In under 5, someone shouted, "It's trending." The supervisor reached forward as if he could somehow stuff the footage back into the phones that recorded it. Ranger growled, deep and devastating, freezing him where he stood. No one could save them now. Not their badges. Not their lies. Not their cowardice. And as for the bully? His voice trembled when he whispered, "Please, let me go." I leaned close enough for only him to hear. "You should have thought about mercy before you put your foot into my mother." Share the story if you believe bullies should never walk free. I kept the bully pinned with one hand while scanning the faces behind the supervisor. That's when I spotted him, a younger security guard, barely mid-20s, sweating bullets, gripping a tablet like it was burning his palms. He wasn't corrupt. He was terrified. Our eyes met for half a second, and in that moment, he broke. He stepped forward and whispered, "Ma'am, you need to see this." He angled the tablet toward me, shielding it from the supervisor's view. My stomach clenched, because on the screen weren't random files. They were complaints. Dozens of them. Complaints about this same bully. Assaults. Threats. Intimidation. All stamped with the same red tag. Case closed. Insufficient evidence. Except the evidence had been there. Videos. Photos. Witness statements. Every single one marked deleted. Purged. Buried. Protected. My jaw tightened as the young guard tapped another folder. A list of payments appeared. Small, frequent transfers from an unmarked account into the supervisor's personal banking app. The amounts weren't big enough to raise flags, but frequent enough to paint the truth vividly. The supervisor was being paid to make problems disappear. And the bully was one of those problems. I felt that cold, familiar stillness settle into my bones again. The one that precedes decisive violence. The supervisor must have sensed it, because he lunged forward, grabbing for the tablet like he could rip the truth out of existence. "Give me that," he hissed, voice cracking. I stepped between them instantly, my hand snapping out to block him. He didn't touch me. He didn't dare. But he tried reaching again. And that's when Ranger moved. Not with a bark. Not with a lunge. With something worse. A deep, guttural growl that vibrated through the tiles and straight into the supervisor's spine. Ranger stepped directly in front of me, teeth bared in a slow, deliberate reveal of exactly what would happen if that man came 1 inch closer. The supervisor froze. Every muscle locked. For the first time, he wasn't angry or arrogant. He was afraid. Afraid of Ranger. Afraid of me. Afraid of the dozens of cameras still recording. Afraid of the truth he'd spent years burying finally clawing its way into the light. I held the tablet up between us. "You deleted evidence of multiple assaults," I said, voice sharp enough to cut through bone. "You accepted under-the-table payments. You protected a violent man who preyed on travelers, including my mother." He opened his mouth. Probably to lie, to beg, or to accuse. I didn't let him. "You're done." The young guard swallowed, shoulders trembling. But he nodded. Because he knew it too. This wasn't just misconduct. This was a criminal conspiracy in uniform. And they'd chosen the worst possible moment to let it unravel. Right in front of a Navy SEAL, whose mother was lying on the floor they refused to help. The supervisor stood frozen under Ranger's growl, the bully whimpering behind me, and the crowd recording every second. Perfect. It was time to bring real power into the room. I shifted the tablet under my arm, tapped the secure icon on my encrypted phone, and switched to military priority channel. My voice didn't shake. It didn't rise. It didn't falter. It was the voice I used on missions that determined whether people lived or died. "This is Lieutenant Commander Sarah Hale, United States Navy SEAL," I said, loud enough for every camera to catch it. I am reporting an active felony assault on a senior citizen, obstruction by airport security staff, evidence destruction, and what appears to be a coordinated cover-up. The terminal fell completely silent. I continued. Requesting immediate response from NCIS and FBI Transportation Crimes Division. Multiple witnesses, digital evidence secured, corruption verified. The operator didn't even ask for clarification. Just one sharp response. Copy that, Commander. Stand by. Federal assistance inbound. The supervisor's knees buckled. I ended the call and finally turned toward the person who mattered most. My mother. She was curled on her side, clutching her ribs, breath shallow and uneven. Her green dress, the one she wore to greet me, was wrinkled and smeared across the tile. The sight hit me harder than any blast I'd taken overseas. I knelt beside her, the tablet on one knee, my hand brushing her hair back gently. "I'm here, Mom," I whispered. "I'm here now. You're safe." She opened her eyes, pain swirling through them. She tried to smile. She shouldn't have had to smile through pain. Not for me. Not for anyone. A punch of guilt slammed into my chest, guilt that I wasn't here 10 seconds sooner. Guilt that she had to endure even a second of cruelty while I was walking toward her like everything was normal. I hated that feeling. More than bullets. More than blood. More than war. "I'm sorry," I breathed, my forehead touching hers. "I'm so sorry." Behind me, the bully whimpered. The supervisor muttered excuses to no one who cared. The young guard swallowed back tears. But none of it touched the storm forming inside me. My fury had shape now. It had direction. It had purpose. And I would use every tool, every clearance, every ounce of training burned into my bones to make sure these men never harmed another soul. I lifted my mother in my arms, carefully, gently, the way you lift something sacred. "Medical," I shouted. "Now!" 2 paramedics broke through the crowd, racing toward us with a stretcher. I let them in, but I didn't step away. I stayed beside her, holding her hand, Ranger pressed against my leg like a shadow forged from loyalty and rage. As they checked her vitals, I stood guard. Not as a soldier. Not as an officer. Not as a SEAL. As a daughter. And God help the men who had forced me into becoming all 3 at once. The moment the paramedics lifted my mother onto the stretcher, the entire terminal shifted. The air pressure changed. People stopped breathing. A ripple of something electric rolled through the crowd. Because federal agents had arrived. Not in a dramatic swarm. Not yelling. Not flaunting authority. Just 3 dark jackets, moving with the precision of sharks gliding through shallow water. Their eyes went straight to the bully. And the first domino fell. 2 agents locked onto him instantly. "Hands behind your back," one ordered. The bully took half a step toward me like he expected protection. Like the corrupt supervisor would bail him out again. Not today. The agents grabbed his arms, wrenched them behind him, and drove him face first into the floor with the exact amount of force required. He screamed. Not from pain. From shock. Because in his world, he'd never been held accountable. "I didn't do anything," he yelled. She got in my way. "I didn't mean, this is crazy. Let me." His voice cut off with the metallic click of handcuffs tightening on his wrists. I watched without blinking. Not revenge. Not pleasure. Just justice. Cold. Clean. Necessary. He thrashed as they pulled him up, whining, begging, turning red with humiliation. His eyes darted to me. Like he expected mercy. He got none. I stepped forward just enough to make sure he heard me. "You kicked the wrong woman." His knees nearly buckled. Domino 1. Down. The lead FBI agent turned to the supervisor next. The man who grabbed my arm. Who protected a predator. Who buried evidence like it was trash under his desk. "Supervisor Mills," the agent said, voice like a blade, "you are under arrest for obstruction of justice, destruction of evidence, bribery, and conspiracy to conceal multiple felony assaults." The crowd erupted in whispers. Mills staggered backward, face draining of color. He looked at me like I had summoned hell itself. No, you don't understand, he stammered. This wasn't my fault. Corporate told me. She attacked me. This is all a misunderstanding. The agent flicked a hand. 2 officers grabbed him. Ranger stepped forward, growling low. Mills flinched so violently his badge fell off. In my line of work, there's a particular expression I've seen on corrupt officials right before the cuffs close. A stunned disbelief that their ladder of protection finally snapped under their feet. Mills wore that expression beautifully. The agents walked him out in front of every staff member he'd intimidated for years. Phones recorded from every angle. Every lie he ever told shriveled under the fluorescent lights. Domino 2. Fallen. Hard. But the final domino? That one fell miles away. As the agents secured the scene, one of them lifted his radio. HQ, initiate warrant protocol. Target, Richard Dane, Regional Operations Executive. Charges, financial tampering, bribery, harassment pattern cover-up, and coordinated obstruction. Richard Dane. The man who paid Mills to erase complaints. The man who protected violent passengers to keep statistics clean. The man who thought airports were his private kingdom. Federal teams raided his office while I stood there watching the supervisor being dragged away. They found hidden hard drives, fraudulent reports, entire folders labeled internal incidents, delete, transaction logs connecting him directly to Mills, and payments from an anonymous VIP traveler fund. When the agent showed me the live confirmation feed on his phone, I didn't feel triumph, just recognition. Because corruption smells the same everywhere. Whether it's a foreign warlord hoarding bribes in a bunker, or a polished executive in a glass office, hiding behind a corporate logo. Both rot from the inside. Both prey on the powerless. Both fall the same way. Fast. Loud. And with no one left to protect them. As Dane was shoved into a van miles away. Hands cuffed, face pale, career in ashes. I felt something settle in my chest. Not satisfaction. Not closure. Resolve. Because this wasn't just for my mother. It was for everyone they'd silenced. Domino 3. Crushed. And the chain reaction had only just begun. The chaos of the terminal faded into a distant hum as I followed the stretcher down the hall, Ranger pressed to my side like a silent guardian. My boots echoed against the linoleum, steady, measured, but inside? Inside, I was shaking. Not from fear. Not from adrenaline. From something far worse. Guilt. The medics moved quickly, transferring my mother into a small observation room. Machines beeped softly. Sterile lights hummed overhead. Everything about the place felt too bright, too cold, too clean for what she had just endured. I stayed beside her as they examined her ribs, her breathing, the bruising already blooming across her side like dark fingerprints. When the door finally clicked shut behind the medics, the silence hit me like a breaking wave. She turned her head toward me, eyes shining not with anger, not with fear, but apology. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," she whispered. Her voice trembled. "I didn't mean to be a burden." The world tilted. A burden. My mother. My anchor. My moral compass. My heartbeat. Thinking she was a burden? Something inside me cracked open so violently I had to grip the edge of her bed just to stay standing. "Mom," I breathed, trying to steady my voice. No, don't say that." She blinked, confused by my reaction. And before I could stop myself, the tears came. Not the silent kind I'd mastered as a soldier. Not the controlled ones you wipe before anyone sees. These were hot, violent, unapologetic. The kind I hadn't allowed myself since I buried my father. "I should have been there sooner," I choked out. "I should have protected you. You deserved better. You always deserved better." Her hand, small, warm, trembling, lifted to my cheek. "My brave girl, you were there when it mattered. I sank to my knees beside her bed, Ranger pressing his head beneath my arm as if holding me together by force. For the first time since this nightmare began, I wasn't a SEAL. I wasn't a commander. I wasn't the woman barking orders and taking down criminals. I was just her daughter. "Mom," I whispered, forehead resting against her hand, "you're the reason I fight. You always have been. Everything I've survived, everything I've done, it was for you. To come home to you." Her breath hitched. She brushed my hair back the way she did when I was 5 and afraid of thunderstorms. "I know," she murmured. "And I'm so proud of you." The words hit harder than any explosion I'd walked away from. Outside the room, I could hear faint chatter. Security being replaced. Passengers giving statements. People demanding reforms. Agents coordinating the fallout of the arrests. The entire airport, this whole community, was shifting, healing in real time. But in this tiny room, none of that mattered. It was just us. A broken daughter. A bruised mother. And a bond stronger than any violence thrown our way. If Margaret's strength inspires you, comment, "Thank you, Margaret," down below. The doctors cleared her to travel with assistance, and when I stepped behind the wheelchair to take the handles, something inside me steadied, quiet, firm, unshakable. She wasn't broken. She wasn't defeated. She was Margaret Hale. And she was coming home with me. Ranger took position at her flank, shoulders level with the chair, eyes scanning every stranger, every shadow. Not barking. Not growling. Just watching. Just ready. The perfect guardian angel with teeth. We moved slowly through the terminal, the same place that had swallowed her with cruelty now parting around us like a tide. People stepped aside, whispering her name, some touching their hearts, others placing hands on their children's shoulders. A few whispered to me, "Thank you. We saw what you did. She's lucky to have you. No one should go through that." But I didn't stop. I didn't speak. My focus was on the woman in front of me, my mother, her hand resting on Ranger's head for balance, for comfort, for strength. At Gate B12, our original meeting point, she lifted her chin slightly, trying to reclaim the dignity the bully tried to steal. I saw her jaw tighten when she recognized the spot where she fell, but she exhaled slowly, refusing to let the past 5 minutes define her. I leaned down beside her. "You okay?" I asked softly. She nodded once. A proud, quiet nod. The kind that told me she wasn't fragile. She was fire wrapped in gentleness. When pre-boarding was called, I pushed her toward the jet bridge. The floor vibrated beneath the wheels, the same vibration I'd felt stepping into combat zones all over the world. But this time, the mission was different. Personal. Holy. Ranger walked ahead, clearing the path, tail low, muscles tight, a soldier in a dog's skin. At the aircraft door, I paused. The smell of recycled air, jet fuel, and cheap cabin coffee washed over me. But instead of flashbacks or tension, all I felt was something fierce and clean. Purpose. I looked down at her, my mother, my heart, and then beyond her, into the fuselage that would take us away from this nightmare. And I spoke the vow out loud, not for the cameras, not for the agents, not for the crowd. For her. I've taken down enemies across the world. My voice didn't waver. But today, protecting my mother was the mission that mattered most. Her eyes shimmered. Ranger pressed against my leg. The plane hummed beneath my feet. And for the first time all day, I felt home. As the cabin doors sealed and the engines rumbled to life, I took one last look at my mother resting in her seat, bruised but unbroken, shaken but undefeated. Ranger curled at her feet like a living shield, refusing to take his eyes off anyone who walked past. I'd fought wars overseas. I'd taken down dangerous men in places most people couldn't point to on a map. I'd seen darkness in all its shapes. But nothing cut me deeper than watching someone try to break the woman who raised me. And nothing made me stand taller than protecting her. If this story of courage, justice, and a daughter's love touched your heart, If you felt even a spark of what I felt when I stood between my mother and a bully, then I'm speaking directly to you now. Like this video, it tells the world that kindness is strength. Subscribe, so you never miss another story that shines a light into dark corners. Comment, Amen, if you believe good will always rise to protect the innocent. Share this video, because somewhere out there, someone needs a reminder that bullies fall, justice rises, and love is the strongest weapon a warrior can carry. This is Sarah Hale, Navy SEAL and daughter, signing off with a simple truth. Protect your loved ones. Stand for what's right. Never let darkness pass unchallenged.